Hello, my name is Lewis and welcome to day 27 of Decktober. Today we're looking at a $50 budget Katilda Dawnhart Prime deck tech. Katilda allows all human creatures you control to tap for 1 mana of either Selesnya colours, and you can pay and tap to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This deck is all about going full on human tribal, whilst also getting even more +1/+1 loving cards, so eventually our big human army can swing out for the win. Now, let's get right into the budget deck tech. As always in these budget brews, we're starting off first with the ramp. Here we have Avacyn's Pilgrim to tap for a plains, a Knight of the White Orchid that when ETBs, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you can search your library for a plains, putting it right onto the battlefield untapped. There's Heron Blade Elite that you put a +1/+1 counter on whenever a human ETBs on your side of the field, and you can tap Heron Blade to add X mana of any one colour where X is its power. And Celebrate the Harvest to search for X basic land cards where X is the number of different powers amongst creatures you control, putting those lands onto the field tapped. We have matching green classics in Cultivate and Kadama's Reach to both search your library for 2 basic lands, putting 1 in your hand and 1 onto the battlefield tapped. There's Rampant Growth to search your library for 1 basic land, putting it onto the field tapped, and Talisman of Unity to add a colourless. You can tap for green or white but have to take that 1 damage hit. There's Arcane Signet to add 1 mana of any colour in your commander's colour identity, and Selesnya Signet to pay, tap and add Selesnya. And finally, we have Sol Ring, because Sol Ring. Before we get on to that human tribal, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. It's completely free to do, and it helps our channel grow and grow as we head towards 2,000 subscribers. So now we're looking at all of the human tribal going on in this budget brew. And first up is Eternal Witness, the ETBs get you a card from your graveyard to your hand, and Safi Eriksdotter that you can sack, and when target creature is put into a graveyard this turn, you can return that creature straight to the field. There's Frontline Medic that says when it and 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, also having it as a hold up sackable counterspell option. And Stalwart Pathfinder to also give your creatures indestructible if you control 3 or more creatures with different power. Any humans in this deck are doubling down on their efficiency, as Katilda's ability gives them all the option to tap for mana, so ramping through this deck should be extra easy. There's Sareth the Viper's Fang that gives untapped creatures hexproof and tapped creatures death touch, and deck budget breaker and possibly a big win con in this deck, Descendant's Path. This card allows you to reveal a card on your upkeep. If it's a creature that shares a type with another creature you control, then you can cast it without paying its mana cost. Free humans, you love to see it. It does also take up 1/5 of the whole deck's cost, so if you did want to get rid of it, there's also plenty of other human options you can put in there. There's Odric Master Tactician that when it and at least 3 other creatures you control attack, you get to choose the blockers instead of your opponents. And Adeline Resplendent Cathar that creates a 1/1 human token when you attack for each opponent you control, with its power and toughness being equal to the amount of creatures you control. And if you haven't already, do check out the Adeline deck tech that we dropped the other day. Human Token Madness. We have Elite Scale Guard to bolster 2 on ETB, and whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. And Thraben Investigator, the ETBs and you investigate. There's Giant Killer with some removal options with that adventure mechanic, and you can also use it to tap target creature. We have Join the Dance to create 2 1/1 human creature tokens with flashback, and Sunset Revelry that says if an opponent controls more creatures than you, create 2 1/1 human tokens with also additional chances to gain life and draw a card. There's Flashy Enchantment Omen of the Sun to ETB, give you 2 1/1 human tokens and gain you 2 life, and Tuskguard Captain to give creatures you control with a +1/+1 counter on them trample. For more +1/+1 loving humans, there's Abzan Falconer to give creatures you control with +1/+1 flying, and Arcus Acolyte to give your other creatures with a +1/+1 counter on them outlast. We finished up with those human +1/+1 supporting hybrid cards. Now let's look at all of those +1/+1 counter loving cards. First is Champion of Lampholt that gets a +1/+1 counter on it whenever you play another creature, with it being unblockable to your enemy's creatures with less power than it, and Juniper Order Ranger that says whenever another creature ETBs under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and Juniper Order Ranger. There's Kyler that says whenever a human ETBs under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on it. Potentially a huge board boosting card there. and Thalia's Lieutenant, the ETBs, putting a +1/+1 counter on each of the human you control, and when a human ETB is under your control, you can put a counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. We have Leonor, Autumn Sovereign, that at the beginning of your combat you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control, then drawing a card if you have 3 or more creatures with different powers, and Luminac Aspirant to put a 1/1 counter on target creature at the beginning of your combat. There's Inspiring Call to draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it, giving those creatures indestructible until end of turn, and Herald of War to put a 1/1 counter on it when it attacks, and make those human spells cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Herald of War. If we have all of these creatures that are not only humans, but also spreading out those counters, then we're really doubling down on that chance at the win, when we can also ramp with all of these creatures. We've got Victory's Envoy to put a 1/1 counter on each other creature on your upkeep, and Collective Effort to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, with some added removal options. We've got Pledge of Unity to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, gaining life for each creature, and Shanna Sisay's Legacy to get +1/+1 for each creature you control. There's Marja, Bretagard Protector to give other creatures you control +1/+1, with an added landfall trigger to create some humans, and Rally the Ranks to give all of your humans +1/+1. Finally, there is Sanctuary Lockdown to give all of your humans +1/+1, with the added option to tap 2 humans to tap an enemy's creature, and Ajani the Great-Hearted to give all of your creatures vigilance, gain some life, and all importantly, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. As is tradition, before we finish up with those lands, we're diving into the best of the rest in this budget brew. Starting with the card draw, we have Harmonise to draw 3 cards, and Shamanic Revelation to draw a card for each creature you control, with that Ferocious mechanic to gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. There's Overwhelming Instinct to draw a card every time you attack with 3 or more creatures, and Kenrith's Transformation to ETB and draw you a card. It also enchants target creature, making it an elk with 3 base power and toughness. We've got Lifecrafter's Bestiary that allows you to scry 1 on your upkeep, and when you cast a creature spell, you can pay a forest to draw a card. And True Love's Kiss for some artifact or enchantment removal, and that lovely card draw. There's Kabera Takedown that deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker, and green removal staple Crowsand Grip to destroy target artifact or enchantment with that stack stopping split second mechanic. There's Beast Within to destroy target permanent, with its controller getting a 3/3 beast for their troubles, and Swords to Plowshares to exile target creature, with its controller gaining life equal to that creature's power. We've added Repel the Abominable to prevent all damage that will be dealt this turn by non-human creatures, and Shajiri Shelter to give target creature you control protection from the colour of your choice until end of turn. There's Make a Stand to give your creatures +1/+0 and indestructible until end of turn, and Unbreakable Formation for some more one-sided indestructible plays, with that Addendum mechanic to give your creatures +1/+1 and vigilance until end of turn. We've got Join Shields to untap all your creatures, giving them hexproof and indestructible until end of turn, and Sagada Heron's Grace to give you and humans you control hexproof, plus an added ability to make some more humans. We have a Ketra's Monument to make those white spells cost 1 less to cast, and Cleansing Nova so we have a good board wipe option. Finally, there's Serra's Blessing to give all of your attacking creatures vigilance. As we love to do with these budget decks, we're finishing up with all of those lands, starting here with 13 basic plains and 13 basic forest. We have Command Tower to tap for either white or green, and Path of Ancestry to tap for either Selesnya, also allowing us to scry 1 when we cast those humans. There's Commander Classics in Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse to tap, sack and get some basic lands onto the field tapped, as well as Gavany Township to put a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control, and Castle Ardenvale as that option to make us some more humans. Finally, we have Canopy Vista that enters tapped unless we control 2 or more basic lands, and Fortified Village that we can enter untapped if we reveal a plains or forest from our hand. Katilda is a great and potentially underrated commander from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, and definitely one I could see myself building in paper form in the very near future. Be sure to check out day 28 of Decktober tomorrow, where we'll be looking at a much requested colourless budget commander. I can't wait for this one. There we have it, that is the $50 budget Katilda deck tech. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for all things MTG. Check out our link tree in the description below for all of our social media and affiliate links. For now though, I'm all tapped out, so I'll see you in the next video.